Now, 36 years ago, it began life as a bilateral drill between the armed forces of the US and Thailand. Now, Cobra Gold has ballooned into the biggest multinational military gathering in the Asia-Pacific region. 29 countries took part in this year's event, with half of the troops present being American. It was also the first drill since Donald Trump became president, making it a golden opportunity for his Asian allies to get an idea of America's future military strategy in the region.
The US Army used the Utapao air base during the Vietnam War and later for operations in Iraq as well as Afghanistan. Thailand is the United States' oldest ally in the region, and Cobra Gold highlights the strong ties between their two armies. American troops share their expertise in this event attended by 29 Asia-Pacific countries.
All of our Marines are professional in their screening process, not necessarily confrontational, understanding that this is a non-combatant evacuation.
High-ranking officers have travelled from Japan, Burma or Pakistan to take part in the region's largest military exercise. Here, they are shown how US troops control and evacuate civilians in situations of natural disasters. Cobra Gold also involves army manoeuvres. The US remain by far the world's top military superpower, and it believes the exercise will help prepare efficiently for possible joint operations with allies. Some have in recent years moved closer to China, notably Thailand, with the purchase of tanks and submarines. Experts at Bangkok's Thammasat University are keeping a close eye on this evolving relationship. Chinese policies worry several countries in the region.
A lot of Southeast Asian countries also have military conflict with China, territorial conflict with China. For example, in South China Sea, these countries would never really want China to replace the United States. Or on the other hand, they don't really want the United States to always control or tell them what to do anyway. So they will try to balance between China and the United States. However, on the economic side, they know that they have to rely on China.
From our four nations,
and China was invited to observe the event this year. It helped finance the construction of this school in the Thai countryside. Beijing makes no secret of its ambitions.
The will is more important than the money. You know, if you have money around, you don't have the will, you get nothing done. It's in line with our foreign policy, you know, to be more involved, you know, in international security affairs, and to communicate, to consult and communicate and coordinate with other countries.
Donald Trump said that he wanted to focus on America. Is that a chance, an opportunity for China?
Your topic is just beyond the Cobra Gold. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I heard you were coming.
Tens of thousands of US troops are deployed in the Asia Pacific. They're waiting to hear from President Trump what he clearly wants to do in the region and whether it will remain a priority as it was for Barack Obama.
François Hollande has issued a sharp riposte to Donald Trump after his US counterpart hinted that terrorist attacks had made Europe, and particularly Paris, unsafe.
Take a look at what's happened in France. Take a look at Nice and Paris. I have a friend. He's a very, very substantial guy. He loves the City of Lights. He loves Paris. I hadn't seen him in a while. And I said, Jim, let me ask you a question. How's Paris doing? Paris? I don't go there anymore. Paris is no longer Paris. That was 4 years, 4 or 5 years has it gone there. He wouldn't miss it for anything. Now he doesn't even think in terms of going there. Take a look at what's happening to our world, folks. And we have to be smart. We have to be smart. We can't let it happen to us.
I don't think it's ever good to spread even the least amount of mistrust towards a country that is a friend. I wouldn't do that about the United States. I'm asking the American president not to do it in regards to France.
According to Reuters, Max Hill, the lawyer tasked with overseeing British laws on terrorism, told the Sunday Telegraph that Islamic State militants were targeting cities and posed an enormous ongoing risk which none of us can ignore. Hill said, in terms of the threat that's represented, I think the intensity and the potential frequency of serious plot planning, with a view to indiscriminate attacks on innocent civilians of whatever race or color in metropolitan areas, represents an enormous ongoing risk that none of us can ignore. According to Hill, these plans cannot be ignored, as the attacks are of a similar scale to those staged by the Irish Republican Army 40 years ago.
The ISIL-affiliated group Abu Sayyaf has released footage which appears to show a German hostage being beheaded in the Philippines. Officials in the country say they received reports that Jürgen Kanter had been murdered on Sunday after a deadline to pay his ransom had passed. The 70-year-old was snatched from his yacht off the southern Philippines in November. His wife was later found dead on the abandoned vessel. Abu Sayyaf, which is considered a terrorist organisation by several Western countries, is believed to be holding a number of hostages for payments. It wasn't the first time the German sailor and his wife were kidnapped. In 2008, the pair were abducted by Somali pirates off the Gulf of Aden and held for nearly 2 months.
They arrived like ghosts, covered from head to toe in thick dust. They escaped from their homes while bombs dropped around them. They've been hit by shrapnel, and somewhere beneath the dirt is a bloody wound. All morning, dozens of injured arrive. Bleeding, exhausted, traumatised. This man from Al Mamoun neighbourhood has lost his father, killed as they fled. He doesn't want to leave the body. But eventually it must be taken away for burial. The medics are from the Iraqi army and foreign volunteers.
Yeah, just the head. Can you start dressing the head? I'm going to get the rest of her off. His son is here? I don't know, man. What are we going to do?
This man from California sold his Harley Davidson motorbike to pay for his ticket to Iraq.
From what we're hearing is that, we've heard like the stories, these ISIS drones, right? We're hearing that once civilians are leaving Mosul, they're passing a certain point, ISIS catches wind that these people are leaving, and they can target these groups of people, and they're just dropping the 40-millimeter grenades.
And if you survive that, you end up here, with thousands of people pouring off the back of trucks and into the arms of Iraqi soldiers. It's difficult to imagine the terror and the trauma that these people have gone through. They've been living under the control of Daesh in Mosul for over 2 years. They're now escaping to freedom. People are clearly in shock. They've just grabbed whatever they could. And most of them have no idea from here where they're going to end up.
It was an orgy of obliteration wrapped up in the usual slick production. No one boasts barbarity like ISIS.
In the spring of 2015, the extremists meticulously documented their destruction of the ruins of the ancient city of Nimrud.
Founded in the 13th century BC. They took their sledgehammers to the city's famous winged bulls, the Lamassu, reducing them to a pile of rubble. Iraqi forces recently retook Nimrud, just south of Mosul. We came to have a look, lone visitors to a lonely hilltop that hasn't seen a tourist in years. The scale of the vandalism that took place here boggles the mind. Only ISIS could turn ruins into ruins. By some estimates in northern Iraq, the extremist group destroyed or severely damaged around 80 sites, archaeological ones like this one, as well as Muslim and Christian shrines. Through the warped lens of ISIS's logic, all idols must be destroyed. Their every action here nothing less than utter contempt for Iraq's rich multi-millennial history. And that includes the remains of the vast Assyrian Empire that once stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, the ruthless superpower of its day. The statues, the cuneiform inscriptions now lie in pieces, exposed to the elements. In ancient Mesopotamia, ordinary structures like houses or shops were made out of mud bricks. With time, they simply turned into dust. But for the statues of the gods and the kings, they used stone. The purpose was that they would last for eternity. That is, until ISIS came along. Archaeologists may someday be able to piece some of this together, but that won't happen until the war against ISIS comes to an end. There is gold in this hill. In 1989, Iraqi archaeologists uncovered what became known as the Treasure of Nimrud. More than 600 pieces of gold jewelry and ornaments, considered to be one of the greatest archaeological finds in history. No doubt ISIS, not above the love of money, was searching for more treasure when their cameras weren't rolling. But the Assyrians built their tombs here with a curse, damning the souls of those who violated their sanctity to wander in thirst through the open countryside, restless for eternity. A curse that may soon come true.
A small bomb has exploded at a government building in the Indonesian city of Bandung. After the blast on Monday, police exchanged gunfire with the attacker who set part of the building on fire. Authorities were seen securing the surrounding area and leading office workers to safety. The suspect was captured after a standoff lasting about an hour. Indonesian police say the attacker was hurt during the standoff. According to reports, the bomb was made out of a pressure cooker.
Well, in Sri Lanka, gunmen have opened fire on a prison bus, killing 5 prisoners and 2 wardens. The attack happened outside the capital, Colombo, in what is believed to be a gang-related dispute. The prisoners were on their way to court when gunmen blocked the bus. Similar attacks have been reported in the past.
Iran's navy has begun an annual drill near the strategic Strait of Hormuz on Sunday as tensions with the United States escalate. Iranian state television reported that warships, submarines and helicopters will take part in the exercise. The report also quoted Navy Chief Admiral Habibullah Sariri as saying the maneuver would cover an area of 2 million square kilometers in the Sea of Oman and the Indian Ocean near the strait. Iran had several confrontations recently with US Navy ships in the Persian Gulf and around the strait. The most notable encounter was Iran's capture last January of 10 US Navy sailors who had drifted into Iranian waters after experiencing mechanical problems.
On Saturday, Iran's top nuclear official has said that Iran plans to buy 950 tons of uranium ore from Kazakhstan over the course of 3 years and expects to get Russian help in producing nuclear fuel. The purchase would not violate Iran's 2015 deal with world powers over its disputed nuclear programs, as the deal did not set any limits on the Islamic Republic's supplies of uranium ore. In an interview, Ali Salehi, head of Iran's Atomic Energy Organization, told ISNA, "In nuclear talks, we reached a final agreement on jointly producing nuclear fuel with Russia."
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas says Israel's move to construct more houses on occupied territories is dangerous. Abbas was speaking at the United Nations Human Rights Summit in Geneva. He said Palestine rejects the move because it leads to hatred. Last month, Israel approved the construction of additional housing units in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. Well, Sarah Firth joins me now from Geneva with more. Hi, Sarah. What exactly are Palestinian expectations for this conference? Do they believe it can accomplish something tangible for their interests?
Well, a litmus test for the United Nations Human Rights Council. That's how President Mahmoud Abbas described Palestine. He said it was a crucial test for the United Nations Human Rights Council on whether Palestine succeeds or fails. And when he was speaking in that statement to the Council, we heard him speaking against the recently agreed settlement bill, warning that that could lead to hatred and violence. And he also called for the establishment of an international protection scheme for the Palestinian people, saying that that would guarantee an end to land confiscation. And he also, in that statement, spoke about a dramatic reality for Palestinians. And he said that Israel was violating the word and the spirit of international human rights.
Israel has recently announced its intent to create more occupation units on our lands. It has adopted a law which legitimizes the theft of occupied Palestinian lands.
Now, he was making that opening statement to the Human Rights Council, and he was speaking for the first time since 2015, which was the first time he had actually spoken to the council. And he was, as we said, talking about the situation for Palestinians and also calling on Western nations to back a two-state solution by recognizing the state of Palestine, and saying, look, whether it succeeds or not is really crucial to the whole credibility for the system of human rights.
Tijuana City lies in northwest Mexico, close to the United States border. The city has seen a huge influx of migrants from Central America over the past few years, especially from disaster-stricken areas such as Haiti. Most migrants are seeking to cross the border into the U.S. in search of better lives. However, hopes are gradually being dashed, as stricter migration measures are adopted in the United States, which just ushered in Donald Trump's new administration.
I came to Tijuana just for a better life in the United States. However, when we arrived, we found there are certain barriers. They closed the door to us.
Many people are still swarming into the city from Central America. While on the other side of the border, the U.S. is increasing its efforts to send migrants back to Tijuana. The continuous influx of migrants make costs jump for many of the migrant shelters in the city. One migrant shelter says their monthly electricity charges have increased by some 10 times to $800. The shelters have been facing additional pressure since more Mexican migrants have been repatriated to the city due to Trump's restrictive measures.
Just in 7 months, 17,000 Haitians plus the displaced Mexicans. And now the number of Mexicans being deported have been increasing in the last days with Donald Trump. If we receive a mass migration, it's going to be a chaos here because there's no way to provide enough food or job opportunities for them.
There are now over 6 million illegal Mexican migrants in the United States. Sociologist Jorge Bustamante, former nominee for the Nobel Peace Prize, expressed his deep concerns on the continuing expatriation.
In Tijuana, you have to distinguish between the return migration from the immigration coming from Central America. The return migration is producing greater impact than the immigration from Central America. That's very minor.
Bustamante also says the Mexican-U.S. border cities are likely to be hugely impacted if there is a sharp rise in repatriated migrants. He says even all of Mexico will be affected.
The large number of repatriations by the U.S. will increase public expenditure in various fields for Mexico, including employment, healthcare, and accommodation.
China's massive services sector makes up the majority of its economy. It is experiencing huge transformations and upgrades. And just like many great changes in history, it starts from the small things. A dish, for example. The owner of this restaurant in Shanghai told me that 65% of the people who order this dish are female. Then he elaborated on his extensive knowledge about his customer base.
15.7% of customers here during the Spring Festival were interested in financial news. 13.6% play computer games.
His insights come from a service called Koubei provided by Ant Financial, Alibaba Group's financial arm.
We track people's payment history on Taobao and also offline payments. By knowing what they buy, we can know who they are, what they like, and also their shopping habits.
Koubei allows restaurants to know their clients like never before. They now know who have kids, who drive cars, who usually bring their parents, and who like fashion.
These are valuable insights. Take car owners, for example. Restaurants can give them parking coupons instead of other discounts.
Business owners are now customizing promotion tactics for each individual.
We now know who within our 3-kilometer radius are inactive customers, and we can push coupons to their cell phones. Each coupon is different according to each other's preference.
This is precision marketing based on big data. High-tech developments like this is what the government is pushing for.
Today, productivity is no longer solely determined by labor and land. Now it is driven by technology. We are in the middle of an expansion of technologies like the Internet of Things and big data.
Competition in the services sector is now going beyond price wars. In this new era, it is all about who knows their customers better.
Around 5:15 Saturday night, Hydrum Pretzel ran right to this window of her 28th floor apartment at 20 Waterside Plaza.
I just saw something, and then I heard the doop, and somebody said, "Oh my God," and that's it.
Did you hear a boom?
Yeah, I heard it.
What Pretzel heard was a drone with 10-inch propellers and a camera crashing through the window of the neighbor who lives directly below her. She says it's not surprising.
I saw something flying around here.
Police say the woman was on her computer when the drone came crashing through the window, landing just a few feet away from her. You can see the window now boarded up. The woman did not want to speak at all about the situation. She says she's waiting for more information on the police investigation. But Pretzel and other neighbors are sharing their concerns.
If Amazon uses them, I hope they're a little more careful and not flying them out of windows into somebody else's window.
This woman didn't want to show her face.
If this is not against the law, then it should be.
I think I'll be keeping my blinds down because obviously this isn't being monitored as well as it should be.
Drones are banned in Manhattan unless it's a park within a prescribed area. If you break this law, you could spend 90 days in jail, a fine of up to $1,000, or both. Police are still trying to figure out who that drone belongs to and where it came from, and neighbors are hoping for some answers soon.
The crashing waters of the lower river, giving just a small indication of what has happened in this part of Chile. Diggers have been used to try to deepen riverbeds and stop further destruction. People caught in the water's path were left to try and retrieve what they could from their homes.
The water flooded the riverbed and the watershed. It overflowed by the bridge area. Some houses were damaged. Many were damaged. And there were also people camping in high areas.
Emergency teams had to clear the roads to allow for the evacuation of residents in what has been the second major flooding in the Santiago area in a year. Some of the injured had to be transported to hospital by helicopter, but that wasn't the only challenge.
We have a complex situation regarding the drinking water supply in 33 communities of Santiago, which affects approximately 6 million people.
For many, the only way to obtain water was by queuing in the street after emergency supplies were brought in.
Astronomers and other enthusiasts came from far and wide to stare at the sky. This, they were told, was the best place to observe the annular eclipse, the moon blocking nearly all the sun, leaving a sliver of brilliance that briefly changed light, colours and tones.
It's interesting not only to watch the eclipse, but to observe what goes on around it. This place is home to many animals and birds, and we've seen the impact this eclipse has on them. It's beautiful. It's fantastic.
Unexpected dark clouds did little to dampen enthusiasm. The moon's elliptical orbit means its distance from Earth can vary by up to 50,000 kilometres. Now, at its most distant, there's simply not enough of it to cover all of the sun. It hasn't happened in this part of the world for more than 20 years, an astronomical phenomenon, both fleeting and dramatic, a natural attraction that left spectators staring at the sun. It could only be seen in a corridor 13,700 kilometres long and 70 kilometres wide, running through the south of South America, across the Atlantic to southern Africa.
The weather helped. It looked like it would be cloudy, but then the sky cleared and we could really enjoy it with all these people. It was very moving.
A total eclipse will be seen from North America in August, but this was South America's turn to witness one of nature's most spectacular light shows.